Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Phil for a very special video, an anniversary video, not a review, but sort of a review, whilst being a discussion and a visit down memory lane. We are, of course, talking Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, which has been re-released in cinemas this weekend ahead of its 20th anniversary on May the 19th. Phil, how are you doing today?
I am very good, my friend, very good. Happy to be here and happy to be chatting about probably the best, second best Star Wars film of all time. So,
I can't wait. I'm somewhat scared because it's 20 years. There were children. There are children at screenings that weren't born when this came out, and I have a cousin who wasn't born when this came out because my auntie, who was pregnant at the time, took me twice. So there's certain things such as that I've got to come into realization with. But at the same time, Star Wars is back in cinemas. What more can we complain about? I know last year, like Cineworld showed a couple of them. I know we've got scattered releases, but an official, formal Disney re-release of Star Wars Episode 3 for 1 week only. Not the same week as the anniversary. That's not me moaning. Thunderbolts comes out on Thursday. We're heading into one of the busiest periods of the year with summer blockbuster season. I'm very glad they were able to get out for 1 week. It did contend with Sinners. We'll talk about actually box office later because I want to talk about a record. But I'm just happy that this is out. And we'll be talking about our experiences at the re-release this week, what we've seen online, other people getting to it, our history with the series. But as always, with us streaming live, if you're not watching live, you're always welcome, of course, to comment your thoughts. We'll reply to people that do comment elsewhere. If you like Star Wars, this was kind of not a last-minute video. Like, we knew we'd do something for the anniversary, but we're planning Andor. We're planning Last of Us. It's a very busy time on the channel. We've got new releases. But Star Wars 3, man, like, we can't not talk about it. We've both seen it in 4DX. We'll be talking about 4DX, and we do want people at home to let us know what they thought. Did you try 4DX for this? We spoke about it last year for the Phantom Menace 25th anniversary. Did you go to Star Wars Celebration? We didn't do a roundup video this year. Again, that was like WrestleMania weekend. It was Last of Us weekend. It was Andor weekend. We just did not get any time to do anything for Celebration last week. So if you have been, I want to know your thoughts. We've obviously seen the announcements and we're excited for a lot of them as well. And you want to find out other videos, you can get us on Linktree in the description below. But Phil, I'm going to head over to you first. I want to rewind the clocks back to May 2005. Obviously, we didn't know each other at this point. But Star Wars 3 is coming. At this point in time, it shall be the last ever Star Wars film. Talk me through your experience watching it in 05. I want to know. I don't even think we've ever spoke about. I know we've spoke about the special editions with you, but I don't think we've ever spoken about Revenge of the Sith.
No, I mean, I was 14 when this came out. So, yeah, I'm 34 now, so it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But no, I do remember. And obviously, we've had Robin onto the channel beforehand. I saw it with him all those 20 years ago. I do remember, you already brought it up. I remember having a chat with him beforehand going, this is going to be that last Star Wars film. We were lucky enough to live in a time when we actually got to see new Star Wars. If this won't happen again, this is going to be it. I think Lucas won't do 7, 8, and 9. We might get there at some point. Obviously, little did we know what was going to happen 10 years later. But at that moment in time, in 2005, we were there, we were waiting. And of course, we'd had episode 1 and we'd had episode 2. And episode 2 finished. I remember sitting in the cinema watching the Venator take off, going, cool, now we're about to get into it, and then it ends. You know, oh, come on, we've just got to this bit. And in between, we'd had the animated Clone Wars, not the series we know and come to love, obviously the original animated Clone Wars. So we'd had some sort of clone content, but not a huge amount. So I was very much looking forward to Revenge of the Sith, and also just really looking forward to completing the story arc. I do remember going to the cinema. I watched it about 2 or 3 times, both with my family and friends, and it completely blew me away. And Order 66, seeing the end of it, seeing the full culmination of the story, and of course at the end, seeing Vader finally come to fruition. I remember having these chats with my friends about what we were expecting, what we weren't expecting. And then, funny enough, like when the release came out for it, got the tickets, went there, blew me away. And when the home release came out, I did get the DVD on day of release. And it's a fun. I tell you, it's a funny story, but I remember it vividly because it was on pre-order down at Woolworths, which tells you again how long ago it was. Went down there, picked it up, came back. I was like, right, cleared my day. I sat there, put the disc in, and it just stopped. No idea why. I took it out, and turns out there was a massive scratch going right down the center, like a clean factory scratch going right down. So I had to go down there and re-pick it back up. But it brings back a lot of memories. That's why, yes, want to go back and see it anyway, just because it is Star Wars. But no, Revenge of the Sith was that culmination of the story, and sitting there as a 14-year-old watching it, going, this is the best I've seen out of Star Wars since it had come back to the cinema. So yeah, long time ago, but very, very fond memories. And it's not just the nostalgia, because obviously as you get older, as we got more releases coming up, we sit there and go, cool, okay, we got new Star Wars coming up. Guess what? Time for a rewatch. Time to go through it all. I've spoken on the channel before, George. I think you remember this when I spoke about having to defend my love of the prequels in my uni, in front of my lecturer, in front of my class. And episode 3 was that hill I refused, to not die on. This was my standing point of, okay, as much as you may mock episode 1 for Jar Jar, if that's what your sticking point is, fine. I disagree with you, but fine, whatever. You cannot get away from, the clunky dialogue in episode 2, but what you can get away from is episode 3, the opening, Siege of Coruscant, which we're going to talk about it more when we get into it. But as I sat there watching in the cinema, that opening blew me away. And that's why I had to do 40X this time, because right, if I want to experience anything in 40X, it has to be that Siege of Coruscant, that opening. So we'll get into it all as we go along. But yeah, 20 years ago was a long time, but no, very, very vivid memories of it.
Yeah, it's amazing we get that, because although our age gap isn't that far, I think when you're younger, it feels a lot bigger than what it is. Like, I was 8 years old when this came out, so I was almost 9, and 6 years is nothing now. But I think at that age, when it's like school to uni ages, 1 year's humongous, let alone 6. And my thing was, I was 8 years old. There was a new Star Wars film. It was the last Star Wars film. I was obsessed with Star Wars. Before I was, again, as a kid, we're going to watch this on the opening night. That was a humongous thing. I watch pretty much every film these days opening, and if I'm lucky, I get to see them early. But for this in particular, to go to the opening night of my family, I know exactly what cinema it was. It was the Odeon in Coventry Skydome, a cinema we'd rarely go to, but it was a treat, and it was the Skydome. Actually, incredibly uncomfy from memory. But it was opening night. The staff were dressed up as Darth Maul. And I can tell by my experience, all I can remember off that screen, obviously I loved it, I remember the binary sunset moment. And this sounds like the sort of bullshit people would say to lie about a memory, which they don't have, but I do. And I remember it ending, and I was like, that's it. Like, that's it. Star Wars is finished. That's it. And it was a weird cathartic experience after that. I had to get over hobbies. So like Star Wars, but my brain was Star Wars is finished. That happened to the people before us. And that was obviously what we thought up until 2012, to an extent, until the announcements came. But I loved it then. It was, at the time, my favorite one. Growing up, everyone talks about their viewing orders. My viewing order was technically 1, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3 based off release dates. Phantom Menace and Return of the Jedi were quite comfortably my favorite, and then Revenge of the Sith very much joined that. And I can go one step further. My birthday is July, right? So it's 2 months after. I've got my auntie, before she had kids, would take me and my sisters to Toys R Us to do our birthday shop. And that was special, because if you guys knew Toys R Us in England back then, you turned the aisle and Revenge of the Sith was everywhere. And I remember I got bought the Mustafar playset. I then got bought the Mustafar Lego. I wanted the Darth Vader voice changer helmet, didn't get it. And a few figures what we're going to do. And I remember being buzzing on that birthday, and the present that surprised me most, and this is it is illegal, but I don't mind saying it, 20 years ago. A friend of mine from school bought me, and obviously we didn't know what this was at the time. You know how you'd go on holiday when you're younger and people on the beach would sell you pirated DVDs and games? I was bought Revenge of the Sith. So I had a pirate copy, and obviously my parents were a bit not sure about this, but I was like, Star Wars, great. That ended up being my copy for 2-3 years. I didn't buy it till 07, 08 properly, because I had one on VHS, and then you can't see it on camera. I do have the episode 3 VHS behind me. I think I got that maybe 5-10 years ago now for about 40 quid, which is a bargain because I've seen what they go for now. And obviously, that was the last ever VHS made, like the last ever film put into VHS, because George Lucas wanted it that way. But it became a dark period of time after, we had those great memories watching it, and then it all, ceases to be. And kind of what we do in this video, we haven't like mapped out, we are going to talk about scenes, I guess, but we're not doing like, we're going to dissect every scene, we're going to do this, this, and this, but it's more our experience across 2 decades of this film. And where I want to kind of go with this, and I know it's a bit more difficult for 2 people at the same time, it kind of makes it a bit more intimate, which is great. Seeing the evolution across 20 years, and this is going to be a very different conversation to Phantom Menace. I know you missed the Phantom Menace video last year, but Phantom Menace had the evolution of, hey, guess what? Everyone hated this when it first came out, and now they all like it when we're older. For me, at least as an 8-year-old, Revenge of the Sith seemed to be the one that everyone liked. Even if people didn't like the prequels, they were like, Revenge of the Sith, fair enough. Like, they nailed the ending, or this, that, the other. And, people don't like hearing this, but you get the people that go on about how George Lucas was a hack, George Lucas doesn't deserve, George Lucas ruined Star Wars, George Lucas this. But they'd also say, yeah, Revenge of the Sith was really good. And obviously now they will beg at Lucas every time for everything. Apparently they never slated him, and he literally says in interviews, I sold it because you all gave me shit nonstop. Has this film evolved for you? And if you don't bring up the big show in between, I'll do it after, because it came to me. But I just want to know, like, how is it now compared to then? And that's such a minimalist question.
It's interesting, right? So when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is the pinnacle of the prequels. This is what's going to be, set in stone as the end of Star Wars. How are they going to land it? Everything else. 20 years later, whenever I've done a watch through, it's one of my go-tos to put on. If I have to pick any Star Wars film just to put on because I want to watch a Star Wars film, Episode 3 is right up there for me of ones that I'm like, you know what? Absolutely adore it, put it in. But seeing it back in the cinema, seeing it as it is intended to be on the big screen, you notice more and you notice less. It's a weird feeling because you're sat there, you know every line, you know every scene, you know what's coming. And it hasn't lost the magic. It hasn't lost that feeling of, it's almost better because you know what's coming. You know Order 66 is coming. You can see what's happening. You can see everything around you. You're older, so your brain's a little bit more wide up going, okay, well, it's an experience, but you've experienced it before. But this is slightly different. When it came down to, because I watched Episode 1, I remember it when it came out in 3D. I went to go and see it in 3D. Obviously, seeing the pod race in 3D was kind of, that was what we were there for. This was it's nostalgia, but I can't miss it because this is the one that sticks in my mind. And of course, I was 8 when Episode 1 came out. So I had that same feeling, but for me, it was obviously a few years earlier. And it's evolved over time because when you've seen it before and you're sat there, this time around, what to expect. You kind of relax. I don't know if it's the right word to say, but you notice more the music, you notice more the lighting, you notice more of just the storytelling because you already know what's happening. So you're allowed to kind of look around you more than focus on exactly what's happening at the time. And I picked up something that so bit of a Mandela effect. When you have Anakin sat at the Jedi Temple, waiting, knowing what's happening across at Palpatine's office, I never remembered the whole, if they kill me, you can't save her. I never remembered that line. I didn't remember it being there. So to hear the line from Palpatine, it was new to me. Now, it's probably Mandela effect. I'm pretty sure it's been in there since the beginning, but I never remembered it. So it's something new. Even 20 years later, I'm picking up something that my brain had glossed over. I'd still remember Anakin being sad. I remember Padme's reaction. She might not be a Force user, but you can still see that she's sensing something going on. And I'm pretty sure she's got some sensitivity in there somewhere. But that whole scene, I remember it more for the emotions. I remember it more for seeing the reactions and 3PO being sad and everything else going on. But that line, I didn't remember being there. So it was new, even 20 years later.
There were things I picked up in this as well. And I don't know if it's because it's the cinema. I don't know if it's when it's a comfort film. I'm not saying you take your eyes off it. Like, you put your phone away or you can go on your phone. But when you're at the cinema, it's the whole thing. Can't get your phone out. Some people work. It's annoying me, but it's annoying. there were little things, as you said, that you'd think you knew you didn't know it. And I'd say there are scenes in which the weight of this had changed. I'm going to really quickly bring up this. We'll talk 4DX fully later, but Carl says the opening space battle was unreal in 4DX. Going back to that first meeting for me as a kid, when I said I don't remember too much, I remember the crawl finishing and the bang of the drums. And it's one of my favorite ever opening sequences in film, because for the event status this was, you know what you said, right? Episode 2 ends and the Clone War begun the Clone Wars has, and you don't really see it. Episode 3, on the other hand, I remember the teaser trailer. I remember thinking General Grievous was actually the chairman of Utapau, because I had a Total Film magazine bought for me to get Star Wars 3 photos. And I thought that was General Grievous. Obviously it wasn't. That was a big plot twist for me. And then that opening, just you're sat ready knowing you're about to watch the last ever Star Wars film to be made. And to have the war drums, which you don't know about age, to open it, you're like, oh, wow, that's a cool ship. Oh, there's 2 cool Jedi fighters. Oh, there's drums banging. The turn in is just amazing. It's as amazing watching it in 2025 as 2005.
For me, it is the greatest Star Wars intro out of every film, TV show, animated, live action, whatever. That is the Star Wars intro for me. That whole sequence. Because as you say, you get the war drums, you get the crawl first, but you get the drums, you see the sweeping, you hear the noise of the fight. Yeah, this is cool. They're just out about, oh no, and then the bang in. And I wanted to experience that in 4DX. I'll talk about it properly later, but that was one of the reasons why. And it was, it did not disappoint, because that intro, for me, out of everything, because it is a classical Star Wars trope in a really good way. You know what to expect. You know you're going to get, here's the Prasaga film. You get the crawl, you get the pan down or pan up, depending which one it is, from space onto something in space. This just hits it perfectly. The only other one that comes close is Rogue One, and it's different for a different reason. It's a slow build, but it's a slow build with intensity. And of course, Episode 4, the original, it has that same impact. But for me, 3 is on top. And seeing it again, that nostalgia is there, but it's there in such an intense way.
Could you imagine if we were talking Phantom Menace this year and we were talking about tariffs and tax gradations? Oh, that would be a fantastic conversation. I'm just going to bring this up by Carl. I really like this. I always thought Padme became slightly force sensitive because she was carrying Anakin's children. Like, she could sense his struggle for sense. I like that. I've never seen someone write that, but that's very cool.
That is interesting, yeah.
For the sake of that, Carl, if you're the first person who's ever said that, you should be called Star Wars Theory, not the idiot who actually is. So, I want to talk something else. This isn't part of the segment. This is my brain coming back to this. I want to bring this up. Everyone that watches this channel, and this is a bit personal, everyone knows I love soundtracks. That's my main music I listen to. Revenge of the Sith was the first ever soundtrack I was bought. I asked for it on CD. I had to clarify, yes, I would like a Star Wars CD. Like, I want to listen to Star Wars music. And again, talking 20 years later, I maintain this is the best John Williams Star Wars score.
Yes.
I know, of course, they're using motifs and themes from other Star Wars films. I understand that. I understand what Ford created. But I think as far as a soundtrack goes, this is the best Star Wars soundtrack. I want to say always will be, because anything can happen. If Ludwig Göransson is doing Mandalorian next year, we've just heard how good his Sinner score is. We've seen Oppenheimer. I'm all for music getting better, but the last film, again, John Williams goes all in. And another thing I want to talk, you mentioned the original 2D Clone Wars, which that same birthday I was bought, and I watched Volume 1 and loved it. I'd actually see Volume 2 for years after. We can't talk about Revenge of the Sith in the year 2025 without talking about the Clone Wars now, can we? And I've got to say, we're talking the anniversary, and I kind of wrote this on the mini schedule we have. I didn't. I put thoughts across 20 years. I mentioned earlier there's a weight watching this film now. And this isn't just because the Siege of Mandalore. What George Lucas and Dave Filoni have done with the Clone Wars animated series has greatly impacted watching this film. Now, if you've never seen the animated Clone Wars, not only am I going to politely recommend them to you now, you can only bring up a list of actors who spoke about it. Hayden Christensen spoke to Matt Lanter and said, thank you for saving Star Wars or continuing with Star Wars. He's been very vocal. When Hayden came back for Kenobi, he watched all of Clone Wars in preparation for it. I don't know if Ewan McGregor did, maybe, but the series, whilst it wasn't, it was still big at the time it came out. It was the only active thing Star Wars had leading up into the Disney purchase. We unfortunately had the political rights where Disney couldn't air it, so had to cancel it because of Cartoon Network. They had to wait for the contract to end post cancellation to then get a Disney Plus show. That series, I think, is kind of wild thinking about. And even like today on the second viewing, when there was the meeting, and I'm jumping ahead, I'm talking like the finale of Siege of Mandalore, but Ahsoka being on the call with Mace and the others, knowing that she just missed Anakin. I think about that now. Didn't think about it before, and when Anakin's, I've been in the Outer Rims, and there's all these little pieces, and everyone talks about Anakin was hidden from Grievous on camera across the 7 seasons, how many seasons they did. That show really, again, the opening you spoke about it being the best opening sequence, it put the wars in Star Wars, but the Clone Wars is the show that showed the Clone Wars. We got to see conflicts, we got to see great drama, incredible character emotions, character like development, heroes, villains, cartoonish stuff. Again, the political side of things, watching this and Padme saying, have you ever thought we could be on the wrong side? I see that in the Clone Wars because I see arcs in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And then you can go further to Rebels and you get the great episode where the clones and the droids basically team up and was like, at the end of the day, the Empire wins. And the animated shows, I think we could do. We've never really done the Clone Wars on this channel, and it'd be the ballsiest thing ever to do one day. But we could turn this into a Clone Wars discussion, which we kind of can't do, but we have to bring it up, right? Like it is integral to this, And I've always said this: the prequel trilogy, the prequel era, is a far more interesting era than the Empire. That being said, I saw a post today. I can't take credit for this. Someone did a post online saying, criticize Disney when you need to rightfully criticize Disney. One thing you cannot deny, Disney are the company who made the Empire terrifying for the first time. Now, you're the canon EU guy for me, right?
Yeah.
But I sat there, thought of this from my perspective and what I've seen and what my interest is. I didn't like the old EU. I knew a lot of it because I had Star Wars Fat Files growing up. I used to read them when we get the issues weekly, but it's only in recent years, and it's kind of unfair to pre-Disney because live-action TV wasn't a thing. So there wasn't as much medium or budget there to do so, but I thought, I was like, Disney have nailed the Imperial regime. That's a better term than the era as such. But the depth of the prequel era, and we know that George Lucas is an incredibly political individual. He spoke at length about political influences on his Star Wars films, going back to the original trilogy, not just the prequels, but the playbox of a Clone Wars, I think, improves episodes 3. I think it improves episode 2 to an extent. Phantom Menace, I understand it's not as effective because it's 10 years before, and 2 and 3 is the start and end of that. But I really think the show impacts the viewing of Revenge of the Sith, and seeing that on the big screen this weekend. I've seen it twice, by the way. I saw it in 4DX twice. One was very intentionally planned, the other was very last minute, and I take it as a win. But there's got to be credit where credit's due. And I kind of want, not your thoughts on Clone Wars, because we know that's the second video, but are there things in the Clone Wars that have changed your viewing of Revenge of the Sith across the last 2 decades?
Oh, 100%. It's not just Clone Wars. I'm going to get onto that sentence in a second.
Go for it. The floor's yours.
So to begin with the Clone Wars, it is that impact of Ahsoka. It's something you don't see in episode 2 or episode 3. Obviously, she wasn't in episode 2 around at that point, but wasn't long afterwards that she came into it in canon timeline. By the time you get to the end and you get to Revenge of the Sith, you also know, talk about Siege of Mandalore, he's just said goodbye to Ahsoka for the last time. He's having to go off and save the Chancellor. But not only that, the journey he's been on. When it comes to Anakin, what he's seen. You also know what Obi-Wan has seen. You have seen the Council's point of view. So when they talk about, the Council no longer trusting Anakin, especially when it comes to Mace Windu, what they have seen has been the reactions to Mace being attacked and hunted by Boba Fett after he killed Jango. So there, it's an important link from 2 to 3. Just in that segment alone, Mace being hunted. You then have the impact that is their relationship between Anakin and Padme that is explored more. You know that Rex knows. Rex is a character you don't see in episode 3, but you know he's there. You know what a role he plays. Everything links up, and yeah, it adds that weight. Now, you also talk about the impact that the Disney era of, they finally made the Empire terrifying. Well, no, not just the Empire. If you take Order 66, which is one of the most critical moments of episode 3, you add in Mandalorian, you add in Jedi Survivor, you add in Kenobi, so you get all these additions. Grogu, what was happening when he was in the Jedi Temple. Anakin, you get an additional scene thanks to this wonderful creation. You get Anakin, you get Hayden Christensen coming back, playing Anakin again, and adding to that Jedi Temple massacre, a massacre that is so emotional, so heavy that when I'm watching episode 3, when I saw it in the cinema, all I could think about was not just what I was seeing, but what I wasn't seeing. What else was there? The impact that had on it, the full weight of the betrayal. So when you take into effect, it then does weigh into it. So Disney, I understand what they're saying about finally making the Empire terrifying. They haven't just done that. They made Anakin more terrifying. They made Vader more terrifying. They also then brought the impact of not just what about the droid attack on the Wookiees? That wonderful famous line by Ki-Adi-Mundi. You have all these additional parts that do add up to the greater picture from both the pre-Disney and post-Disney era that is Star Wars. You add it all together, don't subtract one from the other, and it kind of creates this picture that you finally get here. And also, when you have that siege of Coruscant, you know where he's come from, you know where he's going to. You also know, as you said, Ahsoka and Anakin just missed each other on the phone call. You also know that we know what's happening with Padme, so you can see that Obi-Wan's already formulating that plan. So by the time you get into that scene of Anakin's the father, isn't he? It's not the old impact of, Obi-Wan's finally worked it out. It's actually now, for me, the new impact of he's known for a long time. He's now finally revealing that he knows. And he's chosen to hide it. He's chosen to let them have their privacy and chosen to let Anakin, this boy he's been tasked to look after, explore a world that he couldn't with Satine. So it adds this really important dynamic. And again, this is purchased by Disney. When you have Bad Batch, they changed it slightly so that with the Bad Batch arc of it, so that you could see the fact that Obi-Wan said, "Oh, did you say hi to Padme for me?" He knows. And now that scene for me is forever changed. It's still a bit cringy when you watch it because you can see kind of, it's still Lucas, it's still some of the dialogue's a bit clunky, but the impact has gone up by so much because of a couple of scenes here and there from the Clone Wars. So yeah, it is a huge thing.
Yeah, and even with the Clone Wars, sorry, I did hear the whole time. I was fixing my headset, so I just muted myself so I could turn you up. The year 2005, Dave Filoni is at the premiere of Revenge of the Sith, and at that point is dressed up as Plo Koon and is offered the role by George Lucas. Well, not offered the role, but that's when he gets to meet George Lucas at the premiere, I believe. And you think historically, that moment, and even when we get into the montage of all the Dead Order 66 guys, Ki-Adi-Mundi, never really been a fan, if I'm honest, never trusted him. It's not the again, I just never trusted him. But Plo Koon's death is one of the few that has actually changed somewhat as I've got older, whereas like, oh man, Plo Koon, R.I.P. And we've got a great combat cast. His Clone was fantastic. It built the bond between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Yeah, I love what you said, by the way, about the Disney era. They did bring in a lot of stuff in the other live action shows, and one great thing seeing this weekend, and I know this sort of segues a conversation, but I kind of came out of this like I really want to rewatch Kenobi. Like I've not seen it since it came out, and I do like Kenobi. I'm a big fan of the Kenobi series. I appreciate some people disappointed by it. I feel collectively the world knows that Bob Chapek is the reason that was a TV show, not a film. And I think it's a bit tamer, the response, due to everyone knowing that it was, more of a Disney decision than anything. But it made me be like, wow, I'm going to probably watch Kenobi. Like, how cool is it we got Hayden back in a show a couple of years later, and Kenobi came back, and we had all these great things going on, and it's that kind of not entertainment that comes with Star Wars, but I don't tend to make myself rewatch Star Wars. And it'll be last year, Phantom Menace anniversary. There was a lot of stuff going on, Star Wars comfort films, and Phantom Menace was back out. I went to the cinema. I watched Phantom Menace. I'm like, yeah, I watched 2 and 3. Didn't actually do past 2 and 3. This year I watched nothing. I was the week I was like, oh, am I gonna watch Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones? Like, I don't really need to. Like, it's Revenge of the Sith. Like, I know it off the back of my hand, and I felt last year when Phantom Menace got its 25th anniversary re-release, so many people were like, we can't wait for 20 years Revenge of the Sith next year. And although I wasn't at Celebration, I can't talk about disappointment at an event or whatnot. I know Ewan McGregor's currently on stage at West End. He's doing a theatre run. As an outsider who had to give up his ticket to not go, I'm disappointed they didn't do a 20th anniversary panel. That being said, on the basis they probably knew they weren't going to get Ewan, there's no point doing it if you can't get Hayden and Ewan. You can't have one out that main 3. And we know we're not going to get Portman. And in my brain, I'm like, yeah, 50th anniversary panel. For the 40th, they gave the prequels a section. I think they do the same in 2027. So if Natalie Portman is to ever do a convention, and I don't mean signing or photos, I mean, if she's ever going to appear for a Q&A or something, if it's not LA and it's not the 50th anniversary at Star Wars, I don't think it's going to happen. And it kind of makes me more excited for that. And I don't think there was a lot of Revenge of the Sith merch for the anniversary. I haven't seen much on Disney's website, unless they're going to wait for May the 4th or later into May to release it. But there's an awkward countermeasure that Phantom Menace is a humongous 25th anniversary released, but very specifically picking Revenge of the Sith's 20th, because they didn't do a lot for the Phantom Menace's 20th. But at that point in time, and this is part of tonight's conversation too, 2017 Celebration Orlando comes around. They do the 40th anniversary panel. There is that moment of Hayden Christensen where he gets. And it kind of not annoys me because it's petty, but it annoys me that now they keep playing the clip of him at Celebration 23 where he's a bit emotional. And I get that. We were there. We were at that event. We understood why. But that wasn't his first return to Star Wars. That was his 3rd or 4th celebration. I can't remember which one. But that 2017 clip, that isn't just, Hayden got a great reaction. That was the day Disney decided we can do prequel stuff now.
Yeah.
That's what I've always maintained. If anyone wants to go back onto YouTube to that 40th anniversary panel, that is the moment in which the Star Wars prequels became, I don't want to say marketable, and Dave sums it up better than we both do, but I think Dave's logic on the sequel trilogy is the sequel trilogy, it will get its time. It will have its fans. And I will always say this too, and we're part of the prequel. You're more middle ground than prequel generation, I'd say. No offense.
I'm taken.
We've spoke about it. Your intros, the special editions.
Yeah.
You grew up with the prequels, but you also grew up with the originals. Obviously, Phantom Menace being my intro. I meant like the older end of the prequel generation, which is also scary. I've got to add, because there are some kids who didn't grow up with the prequel trilogy. They grew up with the Clone Wars, which is wild and wonderful, as wild as it is. There will be a generation who grew up with the sequel trilogy. And I can tell you all my thoughts on those 3 films. I can get into opinions that would upset some people on those films, particularly one of them of the 3. I love 2 of those 3 films, but this isn't the discussion for that. But I will add, as many of the cast, as George Lucas, as others will say, that generation will grow older. They will get disposable income, like what the prequel generation, I say currently, I know we're in a cost living crisis, but by default, the prequel generation are of working age. They have more money to go to these events, to put money in, to buy the stuff they want they couldn't have when they're younger. They are absolutely correct in shielding the sequels for now, putting them on the back burner a bit, giving the prequels the attention they're due. Because right now the prequels are probably a bit more marketable than the originals, because they've not been done to death, but again, they've been around for decades and decades. Mark Commode did a video on Revenge of the Sith this week, and he kind of ended it with pretty much an apology saying, I was wrong as a tired old man to tell a younger generation that this isn't Star Wars when I didn't even like Star Wars that much. And the message I kind of stick with that, and this is where I do want to talk about the sequels only very briefly, is if you don't have the sequel trilogy, that's fine. But don't take away other people's enjoyment of them. I crap on 9 all the time. I've got friends that love 9, so I just don't say anything. Because we all know we want to say something, but we know we can't.
Oh, yeah.
But because we went through people telling us, this isn't Star Wars, this is shit. The hypocrisy of the people that now, oh, yeah, we loved all 6. No, you didn't.
No.
Otherwise George Lucas said he sold it because of you. So there's things I have issues with, and again, we're celebrating 20 years of Revenge of the Sith, and it feels like we are able to celebrate. I don't believe in 10-year anniversaries for films, but we couldn't have done a 10-year anniversary in 2015. Even though Disney had bought them and Episode 7 was coming out, the prequels are not in a position to be celebrated. But post-Celebration Orlando 2017, again, whether it be the generation's age, whether it be that moment on stage, whether it be the fact that obviously a new era has come with Star Wars, so people are looking back fonder, you name it, someone's going to probably do lectures and philosophy talks on it. This is the time, and I feel like we are at a somewhat of a prequel peak that Clone Wars came back. We got to finish it. We had Bad Batch, a beautiful epilogue. The next animated series is now going to be Maul, which we're excited for. That's going to obviously explore between 3 and 4. I think it will be nearer. Well, sorry, not 3 and 4, between 3 and Rebels, but I think it'll be nearer to Solo, perhaps, than this. I could be wrong, but I feel like we've hit like this peak point. The anniversaries of this and Phantom Menace back to back. Obviously, we'll still get some stuff for Attack of the Clones for its 25th, but it's a really exciting thing to celebrate, and I think it's ended up being somewhat of a tangent rather than me talking about what I was missing. So I'm going to try and get back on somewhat of a plan. But just your thoughts, sorry, on that, because I felt like I've just over monologued.
No, it's fine. I mean, that's the beauty of it all, because I'm in that same boat. I mean, yeah. So I'm a little bit older, and I do remember. Obviously, I had just the originals, and then I had the prequels. And I do remember, and it's that conversation I have. I have friends of mine who I don't talk to Star Wars about because where they're at currently, they are just angry, bitter old men, and they just do not like some of the new stuff, especially when it came to the Acolyte. They hate it with a burning passion. And I got attacked for liking it, essentially. They verbally ripped me a new one for liking it. I'm like, you know what? I've had this before. I'll have this again. I don't care. I'm going to enjoy my Star Wars, and you can just go in a corner and do your own thing. So, yeah, I remember those vivid conversations with people who didn't like the prequels back then. And as you say, we're now at a point, 20 years is a really good year. 10 years is kind of a reunion, but it's nothing. It's special, but it's kind of, you're still fairly close to it. You can still remember it like it was yesterday. 15, okay, you're kind of getting there, but 20 years is the absolute sweet spot. And then from then on in, yes, it's then the 10 years, everything after that is then kind of more impactful. But 20 years is a sweet spot, and it's interesting because when they do 20th for Attack of the Clones, is going to be slightly different, I think, because obviously people do have a stronger opinion. But Episode 3 has that proper nostalgia impact, and then yeah, you talk about 2017. That's what my mind goes to, rather than 23. Yeah, we were at 23, but no, yes, he got a bit emotional there, but that reaction at 2017, it's more guarded, it's more visceral. If you watch it, and you see his reactions because you can see his reaction kind of guarded, because you could see him walking out on stage like, are they going to boo me or are they going to cheer me? What's it going to be? Or is it going to be awkward silence? And no, everyone erupts because, as you say, we're now at the point where our generation has that disposable income, working age, that kind of, we're still young enough to kind of lust after childhood and that kind of, I remember this as a kid, I want my comfort zone. I can now buy what I couldn't afford, but we're not old enough to be the fully crotchety, I remember it, but it's kind of, a long time ago. It's that sweet spot, as I said, for 20 years. And you add it all up, and funny enough for me, I remember I kind of, after I was similar to you. So once 3 was done, I was kind of, okay, put it in a box. Star Wars is kind of done. I kind of fell out. And then at uni, kind of been back into it. Remember watching the Clone Wars for the first time. It brought my hype back into it. Because I didn't get the Blu-ray Star Wars release until I want to say it was 2014. So before Episode 7 came out. But my love was starting to come back at a full pace by that point. We had then Star Wars Celebration, obviously, where you and I met, and met Dave as well. And we had everything coming off the back of that. 3 was that culmination, and now you get to that point. And it's just, that 20 years is that sweet spot. It really is. And to see the reactions, they could have done and they should have done a panel, but I do agree with you. If you're going to do a 20th panel without we take Natalie Portman to one side. Yes, we know she doesn't do conventions. That's fair enough. That is absolutely her right not to. They don't have to do any of this. They are their own people. They don't have to come and serve as fans. That's their prerogative. But if you're gonna do a 20th panel, if Hayden's doing it, Ewan would want to do it. They're both that same mindset. We had that a little bit in 23, but if you're not gonna have both of them for the 20th, you're not gonna have it at all. I agree. We'll probably see it in 27 for that 50th, and you'll probably have a more rounded reaction to that because then you'll have the sequels, prequels, originals all in one place in a big panel. You're muted.
Sorry. Attack of the Clones 25th anniversary, 2027.
There we go.
Give them a panel. And it's the same cast as episode 3. Done.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Sorted.
But chuck them on the 50th, though. The convention is great. And this is it. I'm glad they don't have to do conventions. And people seem to forget this. Obviously, they'll get... I don't want to say they get paid to appear in terms of a panel. But obviously, whether they're shooting... Whether they're under it's not like wrestling where they get Legends contracts, but if they're working on Lucasfilm projects, it'll be in contracts you've got to make up some sort of PR appearance at some sort of event for us, and that's fine. But when it is this post, your Star Wars era is finished as such, it's, hey, we're doing Star Wars Celebration. Do you want to come? Do you want to sign autographs? Because they'll get paid then, because they make money off autographs or photos, and then it'll be, can we get you in for a panel? Can we do something with you? Can we get you on the live stage for 10-15 minutes, please? We're celebrating. The whole point of the convention is celebrating Star Wars, and with these anniversaries, it's part of it. It's the Star Wars celebration. It's the 20th anniversary. We're celebrating Revenge of the Sith, and the stuff that some of these actors were ridiculed by. It wasn't just older people. It was TV shows. It was reviews. It was fans. It was TV hosts. Jonathan Ross was the one that always comes to light where Ewan McGregor spoke about it. I was embarrassed, but then the kids started coming to him in the street. Then our generation started growing up, and then people were saying, your Star Wars is our Star Wars. And I'm 2 out of 3 episodes on Industrial Light and Magic Season 2. End of episode 1's pretty tough watch. It deals with the aftermath of The Phantom Menace, and Ahmed Best is on camera, and he speaks for the first time properly about what happened to him and the bridge. And it's a tough watch. He then speaks about George Lucas. A lot of them do. John Knoll, others. They're saying 10, 20 years, everyone's going to love it. Then it cuts to today's George Lucas, not archive interview, today's George Lucas saying, it's show business. Everyone 80% of them are going to hate everything you do. And I would tell them that. And they wouldn't believe me. I'd always say in 10, 20 years' time, this will be different. And I love we're in this era now of George Lucas being right. And I do want to say, I know we haven't spoken about him really in this, we've spoken about Disney a lot, but he's the director of this film. This completed his vision of the 6 Star Wars films, to which we would not be discussed. I would not know you if it was not for George Lucas. Let's just put it there. That's the smallest domino effect ever.
Yeah.
This channel doesn't exist without George Lucas' Star Wars. That's a fact. I don't even know what my life would be like without Star Wars. That's not dramatic.
I wouldn't have worked in film and TV if it wasn't for Star Wars.
Bingo. That was my training. Why? Because that's the thing. The known films are what made me want to work in TV and film, but the interest of film particularly was Star Wars. My uni projects were Star Wars based. The people I've met through the charity groups I've worked with, the Droid Builder guys, everything revolves around Star Wars. So to me, there's a lot I'm owed to that. And so much of that is George Lucas. It is his creation, it's his ideas, his ideology, how he works as a filmmaker. And as someone who works in the industry to an extent, and I wouldn't say I stay in the industry, I do this now, but within this, obviously, I get a lot of industry perks. Obviously not being paid. The one I was to remind people, you don't get paid to see YouTube. You really fucking don't. I wish I get paid to go to press screening because trains are not cheap in England.
No, they are not.
No. And I forgot where I was going to go with that, so I was just going to rant about how awful the state of it is getting back into the industry. George Lucas's developments in the 80s, between Star Wars eras, the man essentially created Pixar, if you really want to get there. You look at the camera, the tech he developed under and with ILM, and look at everything that came after. You look at what Kathleen Kennedy spoke about recently. The volume was George Lucas's idea. He wanted to do the prequels in the volume. The technology did not exist in the volume. But what did George Lucas do? He started creating the new technologies. He's the reason cinemas went digital. He's the reason filmmakers went digital. He pioneered the industry to push them forward as quick as he could. And he was ridiculed for it. When the reality was he opened the doors to our generation, other generations, to make it more accessible than it could ever be. John Knoll co-created Photoshop. What am I going to be editing these thumbnails on? Adobe products. this is the sort of thing we deal with. Where was John Knoll's breakthrough Star Wars? Well, I'm sorry.
And actually, sorry, you mentioned the digitization. I remember watching some of the extras, and you see when Lucas is like, well, I was getting a bit frustrated because I wanted to be able to view the day shooting the day I shot it, not a couple of days later. So he implemented the digitization, they put it on the tape, and they were able to get it in the edit suite so he could watch the rushes at the end of the day. His mind was just ticking always of, well, I want to do this, I can't do this. We got the special editions in 97 because the technology didn't exist 20 years beforehand. But 20 years beforehand, he had to literally create ILM from the ground up to go, well, I need to do this. This does not exist. I need to bring in these people to do this job. Lucas is one of the most impactful inventors and creators, not just in cinema, but in some of the most important fields of digitization and digital products we have today. It's incredible. So when people do talk about Lucas, he, as you said, he had that insight of, yeah, they are going to hate it, but they'll get it eventually. And that's the key. They'll get it eventually. And it was fantastic. Anyway, sorry for interrupting.
No, don't, because it's great points. And as you said, as an innovator, it's almost selfless that it's a really weird comparison because someone's going to question there. I love that Spielberg and Lucas are best friends because it makes it so much fun to compare them. Who's the one director that was always rolling with the new tech that George Lucas was building? Spielberg. Who is Spielberg? To me, the greatest director of all time. And what he would then do with that technology is, hey, look what Spielberg just did using this. Now let's all do it. Digital, War of the Worlds is all over that episode of ILM where they talk about going digital. George Lucas had at Skywalker Ranch a big meeting where like hundreds and hundreds of filmmakers turned up over X amount of days. Very few of them went digital, but guess who one of the first ones to go digital was? Steven fucking Spielberg.
Didn't he direct one of the Splinter units on episode 3 as well for a bit? They brought him in just to do a couple of things.
The unofficial talk of town, and I love this because I don't think we'll ever find out. The stories I heard is he storyboarded the Grievous chase on the wheel, and I believe in the editing suite he re-edited the sequence with Anakin Windu Palpatine.
Yeah,
I don't think him or Lucas have ever outright come out and said this is exactly what Spielberg did.
No, but there's a hilarious scene in the extras for episode 3 where you have Spielberg come in and he just breaks one of the battle droids. And it's just fantastic because it's like, Lucas, you can see me going, really? I brought you in to see my toys and you break them. Why have you done this and how? Just no. And then he goes, well, maybe we should bring him into a bit of second unit director work. And then that was the last
he
bit
did
in
do
the official things. Yeah.
He did do some work on it. And I know obviously, the dream at the time, 83, the dream was to get Spielberg to direct Star Wars, and it probably is the greatest what if, and it's kind of the Lucas thing. Like when I said he was selfless with his own career, he knows he isn't the best at writing. And I think Mark commented well earlier. Whilst writing is a struggle for him, he's a great plot writer, which is probably the better term. And the problem with Lucas, not that I have, that I think is his own issue. It's the industry scorned him big time in his early days.
Yeah.
If you look at everything he would go on to do and become, everything is rooted in how the industry first treated him. I'm not saying he had a vendetta, but he very much then built the mentality of, I will control what I am making. And he took it to levels that no one has ever done and changed the industry for it. Changed the industry for it for the better. And an issue with that is the trust factor. He originally spoke to Ron Howard about directing those films. People saying, why is it Ron Howard? Well, you go back to American Graffiti. That was Ron Howard, one of Ron Howard's big breakthrough roles. And Ron Howard had been amazing involved in Star Wars. And obviously, we then get Bryce Dallas Howard coming on board decades later, which is wonderful.
Yeah, Ron Howard also saved Solo.
Oh, great. Another one here by Carl. Apparently, Spielberg filmed the invisible hand crashing landing at the beginning. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that he probably did more in it than we ever knew. And I love stuff like this, that, it's an enigma. But it's one of them where, without Lucas's ideology and what he was creating, going back to The Mandalorian, the volume is an incredible piece of kit. My criticism of the volume has not been the volume. It has been Disney's over-reliance on it since. Oh, look at this good bit of tech that worked for Mandalorian. Let's just stop shooting all of our films on location and chuck them in here. The reason that doesn't work, for so many different reasons, and I know it's way off point of Revenge of the Sith now. Look at Andor. we use the volume. What for? We wanted the reflections of Coruscant in the background, so our actors are on a set, but the windows aren't green screen. We can do this because we want the reflections of the windows on the glass table.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Limited use, but it's in use. It's basically a glorified projection. Meanwhile, I don't know, random Marvel film. Look at that blatant green screen. Yeah, we tricked everyone in the volume. But why?
Oh yeah, no. Quantumania is a fantastically awful example of how not to use the volume.
Yeah, Mandalorian is like I know season 3. There are moments where it feels a bit rushed or reshot, but those early seasons, like everything they planned, they would build sequences around it in tandem with the set, with the background. And could you imagine a world where George Lucas had that in in 99 to 05?
Yeah,
like imagine. I mean, I say imagine Mustafar. It still look ridiculously different, but he wanted.
Imagine Mustafar on the volume.
This is it. Yeah, like he laid the groundwork for this to then be made, and it still took a decade and a bit after. You go back to the Lion King and everything Jon Favreau did on that, and the Jungle Book. That combined with George Lucas's ideas is what creates the volume. And I just think it's remarkable. And the big thing for Star Wars with me, it's always had innovation. And again, I'm not going to get into sequels. I don't want to judge the Disney era because we talk about innovation. We've just gave a glowing,
Although to be fair though, if you want to, sorry, before you continue on this one, if anyone wants to really get a proper in-depth look of the innovation and B, what Lucas was thinking, watch Within a Minute. The documentary that's on episode 3, Within a Minute. That 1 hour documentary where they break down 1 minute of footage and look at every single department that goes into it and every single thing that Lucas has thought about, every single plot point, every single second of that film taken into account. I mean, and we talk about Mustafar. They talk about filming the lava. You can still spot it today. There's one bit, one of the bits of the lava runs backwards because they had to reverse the film because they did the tracking in the wrong order and they realized, hang on a second, we need to flip it. And they went, oh, we got bits going up backwards rather than forwards. And you put all that together, you then get what you get here. And as you say, imagine if Lucas had the volume back then, but his ideas are still what funded. Lucas's ideas are still trickling in now. There's stuff that he put on paper that never came to fruition then, but you now do get. And Spielberg, as you spoke about, has one of those things. He probably still has Lucas on speed dial going, hey, I want to do this. What do you think? And it's still those ideas coming into it.
We know that Filoni and Kennedy do too.
Mm.
At the end of the day, I won't get into Kathleen Kennedy stuff because people get upset, but he did hire her. He'd worked with her for a decade. It's that trust factor again. He trusted her with his company. He'd worked with her from Indiana Jones onwards. And I will add this to that conversation, not me giving an opinion, when the time comes, if it is this year, as has been rumoured elsewhere, if she is to step down as Lucasfilm president, I will be the first to say I do not trust Disney in a replacement because it will be a Disney suit.
Unless it's Filoni.
I don't think it'll be Filoni.
No.
In my personal opinion, for when that day comes, I don't want to get to football, but it's like when Arsene Wenger left Arsenal. The club was a shambles, and the guy that was meant to hire his follow-up failed. He then fled to Italy. Very reminiscent. His role as the head of the CEO of Arsenal kind of was split into 3. There's a guy that does the transfers, there's the guy that does the business side of things, and there's a guy that does like the management club side of things. I think, and this is just my head, this isn't like I need this, I want this, I'm looking for this. I think we will have a film producer / director like a Jon Favreau who will handle production side of things. I think he'll work in tandem with a story group contact, whether that be a Dave Filoni to be higher.
Pablo Hidalgo.
Maybe. And then I think we do get an official, this is the title president, whatever you want to call it. And my worry is Disney put a suit in. But I think the role, and I don't say will, I think it could be more beneficial to have somewhat more of an even tandem. I've forgotten her name. Charlie Ashby, friend of the channel, spoke about her coming on board. She's been I think she's vice president. I've forgotten her name. Incredibly embarrassing. She's been credited on everything Star Wars last 10 years. That's really frustrating. I've forgotten her name, but different conversation, not Revenge of the Sith, but here we are 20 years later. Who gets to say they masterminded the re-release? Because let's talk this. Let's go back into Revenge of the Sith. Sorry, but we've got way into Lucasfilm politics. But again, George Lucas is a big part of it. He was the director. I want to talk about us watching 4DX because I'm also got my eyes on the clock. I know it's 10:30 on a Sunday.
Yep.
4DX, your first ever 4DX film. Floor is yours. I guess it's something new, right?
It is something new. I won't ever do it again, but that's for personal reasons. Yeah. You know the reason behind all this. However, taking my health out of it all, it is phenomenal to see, and it does add a layer that you just will never get. I mean, I forgot there was rain in it, for example, when it came to one of the scenes. Like, oh yeah, this is the thing, and I got to clean my glasses off. But the Siege of Coruscant, when I saw it was 4DX, when I saw there was an opportunity, my mind went to two things: Siege of Coruscant and Battle of Heroes. Those were the two things I wanted to see in 4DX. I was like, if I'm going to experience this is the reason for it. This is there's a green light, go, this has to be it. And that intro, when you have it and you're sat there and it's kind of, you're panning down with the camera onto it, you know what's coming. It is a bit like, oh shit, here we go. And it is incredible. And it adds a layer to it of, Mustafar, you get a bit of smoke. You don't get lava thrown on you, lucky enough. The floor does not become incredibly hot. But some of those scenes, it is like being strapped on a roller coaster for 2 hours with a screen in front of you. I was worried about potential motion sickness and all the rest of it, but it's not. It is fantastic. I forgot more when you then have things like "Hello there," the classic meme, but it hurts because you get a proper thump in the back as you land. But the chase on the bike and the pterodactyl, going through Coruscant itself, with the Coruscant, the landing, everything else, it is an experience. And to be fair, if you're gonna do it, why not do it for one? You have the audio from. It's the thing. You have the perfect trifecta. You have the music from John Williams. You have the visuals of Star Wars itself, and then you have the physical impact along with it. And it relaxes because you have the whole dialogue bits. Nothing's really happening. You're just enjoying what you're seeing in front of you. It kicks in when it needs to. It doesn't when it doesn't. And it is, I think it's one of those films where it is a gimmick. Let's be real. 4DX is a gimmick. You are going there for an experience, not just for the film. You know what you're getting yourself into a little bit of, this isn't how a film's supposed to be viewed per se. But if you know that and you know what you're going to see, this is something to experience with. If you're going to have it as a gimmick, have it as something that works well. And this does translate really phenomenally well. I came out, and that was probably by far my favorite Star Wars cinema experience. Because the theatre of it all, the actual spectacle, all added up between the music of John Williams, the visuals of Star Wars itself, plus the added physical effects that created a 2-hour bubble of there is nothing else in the world. There is just me, this screen, this story. And it is something I can't describe. If you really love something and you want to experience it full bore, go for it. That being said, yeah, it was a bit of a brutal one for me personally, but I take that out to give you my honest thoughts on what it was like watching one of my favorite films with the added effects, just to see what it was like. And I think it's one of those things of, it's a gimmick, but it's the perfect gimmick to give an experience. Yeah, it was phenomenal.
I'm glad you bring up the gimmick side, because here's my tandem with it too. I'm going to go because it's the Revenge of the Sith officially being re-released, right? And I'm going to ignore 4DX from last year for a second. The 3D re-releases. 2012, we got The Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
George Lucas, who personally was overseeing those re-releases, he had a new updated version of each film. Those would go on to be the 4K versions that are the Disney Plus versions. As he would always do, he would tinker and play with them. That's one of my big Disney criticisms. I think this prequel trilogy, I know it's a budget thing, but just let ILM do a couple of updates somewhere.
Fix
because Lucas would do it.
Floating pair in episode 2 for crying out loud.
just more the fact like George Lucas will always put money. It doesn't matter he's not re-releasing it somewhere. He's putting budget into that to pay them to update the VFX. It's like a patch.
Yeah.
And I understand why to an extent they don't do it, and it was a rarity that someone did it and people didn't like George Lucas for doing it. I always appreciated it. because he was still doing the prequels even 10, 15 years after. But 3D Phantom Menace slapped hard, and that's a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
I understood them cancelling when Disney purchased them. I understood them saying, "Listen, we can't do this every year. We've got to prioritize on making new stuff." I actually respect that. They came at it from day one. Celebration Anaheim 2015, I believe people in attendance were able to see episodes 2 and 3 because those 3Ds were finished in the George Lucas era, and that is the only time they're ever shown. I was personally gutted. Not that I didn't go, I didn't know of Star Wars Celebration. That was the year I found out about it, that in Germany. But like the first, I was like, oh, there's this big Star Wars thing. Oh, it's going to be London next. Great, I'll go. To get it out now, for them to put it in 4DX, I was personally buzzing because George Lucas would have done that. Of course, George Lucas would have done that.
Yeah, 100%.
And I don't think George Lucas would have done it for the sake of preserving the theatre experience. George Lucas would have been like, easy money. That being said, Star Wars absolutely should be in a format like 4DX.
Oh, it's incredible.
This is it. I'm very particular about what I watched it. And I went with both my sisters today. So yesterday I went with a group of friends. Today I went with both my sisters. Two very different audiences. It is not for everybody. But if it is a film for me, this is my belief. If it is a film that I know, that I love, that I think justifies using the format, then I will take the risk in going to see it. Because you've got to go very far out of my way. This is way further out than a normal IMAX for me to do 4DX. I've seen Top Gun Maverick. I've seen Godzilla -1. And I've seen The Phantom Menace last year. Phantom Menace last year did an unbelievable job. That last year's made me so excited for Revenge of the Fifth this year because I was like, I know how good they did it last year. Like what you said, I cannot wait for the Battle of Coruscant. I cannot wait for Revenge of the Heroes. And episode 3 is the most action-orientated one. I would add, no scene was as good as the pod race because that was literally like an F1 simulator. But it's a completely different experience to what this film was. And I want to give credit to A Strange Way. They very significantly built up to Battle of the Heroes. If you go back to that, and I guess because I've done 4DX twice, right? Not like, oh, I did it twice, but the lighting, the vibrations, and the movement, if you look at Dooku's first battle, it's quite minimal. Obviously, you've had this insane opening 20 minutes, by the way, which just threw people everywhere. By the time you get each duel, obviously Grievous gets a great moments with the lightsabers spinning and the flashing and the chairs like go.
Yep.
The duel with Palpatine, with the window smashes, you get the cold winds. Love that. Lightning, get the lights going. When it got to the last duels, and I guess you could put Yoda and Palpatine in this, they absolutely knew exactly what they were doing. So there's got to be full accommodations to whichever person, whether it be someone at 4DX's head office, whether it be someone at Disney who programs 4D. I don't know how it works. But they balance it out really well to build up to that final duel. And it's kind of the thing I see online about the 4-hour Revenge of the Sith cut that people need to realize doesn't exist. Rough cuts are always 4 hours long. I know there's B-roll footage of extended duels with Palpatine and the Forward Masters. I know there's an extended duel with Count Dooku. What I will always say to that is, yes, we would absolutely love to see them. The reason you do not see them because they would not work in a theatrical release.
Correct.
By the time you would get to Battle of the Heroes, you've already had 3 or 4 exceptionally long duels at that point in time. That is the main event. It is the main event of the trilogy. Personally, I'll go one step further. It is the second biggest moment in the saga after the ending of 6.
Yeah,
because it's ending the other trilogy. It is the question of what is the purpose of this trilogy. This trilogy exists to explain why he became Darth Vader. Now we get to see it, and they're going to make it. So its narrative importance is that high. They nailed it with the 4D, and it was wild at times. I got a bit of whiplash when Yoda and Palpatine did the Force, blow out. That's the first. I was like, ow. I threw across the up and down, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I know it's not for everybody, but that adds to my experience. When I get to look back when I do my ticket book, I now get Revenge of the Sith, and I get 2 4DX showings on top of seeing it as a kid at the age of 8 years old with family multiple times. So I'm really grateful they did it. And if I go to the IMAX conversation, this had one IMAX screening in the UK. It was 11:30 p.m. last night at the BFI IMAX. The BFI essentially put it on because everyone was complaining that they weren't showing it. Now, Sinners has released, and this is very important to bring this up because I'm going to talk money. Sinners has just had an insane box office record. It's had a 10% dip at the box office on its second week. That's the lowest drop of the 21st century for a wide-released film, a blockbuster. Sinners is a great film. It was shot on 70mm IMAX using IMAX cameras. Think Christopher Nolan. For people if they don't get that terminology, that's not me being a dick. That's just saying this is a director who's made the film in that format for that format. I fully back IMAX. We're going to put Sinners in. We're going to keep Sinners in. We have to take Sinners out for Thunderbolts. We can't take it out for Revenge of the Sith. I get that. Fair play for the BFI for chucking on an 11:30 p.m. showing. Probably sold out. Probably didn't because it's so late. I would have loved to have been able to say I got to see it in IMAX. Like, here's the sound, because the sound in 4DX is at the front, it's not the sides. I got to see The Phantom Menace at the BFI IMAX, but that was because it was a lunchtime on May the 4th, not 11:30 p.m. on a Saturday. Again, seeing it in this format, I know a lot of people that went to watch it in normal, and that's fine too. I can tell you this. I found this out on the stream. I'm going to bring Carl up. My screening was sold out and the whole crowd was into it. It was a great experience. Phill, I don't know if you know this. And the people at box office, and this is an official press release on Disney. The Force is strong with Revenge of the Sith at the box office. Revenge of the Sith was released on Friday, made an estimated $25.2 million domestically, taking the number 2 spot at the US box office. Here we go. Outside of the US, it played in select theatres within many markets, on its way to estimated 17 million internationally. Revenge of the Sith this weekend has now grossed $42.2 million at a worldwide box office. This is a film 20 years later, has just made $42 million. That's probably one of the bigger box office opening weekends of this entire year. And there has to be credit for that.
Weirdly, my screening was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was like 8 people. So it was not so much slightest.
But it's re-releases, particularly post-COVID, do not bank this kind of money. The only re-release they've ever banked big money like this is Avatar. It is Titanic, and it is the Star Wars special editions. No other films get those on re-releases. Fair play to everybody involved in this. Patricio, Episode 3 was a wild ride experience in theatres. Absolutely amazing. Again, I don't know if you follow box office. For comparison, it was number 2 in America behind Sinners. That's an incredible thing. It still outgrossed Minecraft. It still outgrossed something else that's out, but a re-release, $42 million. I don't know what its total box office is. I think it was about 850 back in 2005.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to get 4 more days, right? It's playing through to Thursday because Thunderbolts comes out on Friday. That's why Disney aren't going to have it affect their other films' box office. But if Revenge of the Sith, this will go on to be one of the highest grossing film re-releases in history.
Yeah.
And I think that is once again a message that goes to the finances at Disney. Like, hey, not this generation's thriving. These films thrive. Like, the audiences will still come out for Star Wars. And I've got to add this, and I think they'll do it. For the love of God, do something mega for the 50th anniversary. I know that Star Wars Starfighter is going to come out that same month. They have to do something in 2027. You have to put A New Hope out in cinemas for an extended period of time. People will go for the 50th anniversary. If you market it, they will go.
Yeah.
Matt Ferguson, who did the amazing posters for 5, for 6, for 1 and 3, give him episode 4 to do. And if you want to do a 25th fan Attack of the Clones, go for it. Give him that too. He'll have a set of all 6. It's an amazing time to be a fan of Star Wars. And I just think to have this opening weekend, the perk of doing it very late on a Sunday night, we get to talk about the money side of things because that's a clear and evident message that the audience was there. People will be willing to go to the cinema to watch these films that they grew up with, the films that they loved.
To quote the old THX, the audience is listening.
It's a weird side.
I do miss that. I love the fact they kept in the Fox 20th
thing,
but not THX.
I guess because they bought Fox, and that was the weirdest thing after the move was like, oh my god, like.
Yeah,
they don't have, and I understood why. And that now it's like, yeah, we bought Fox. I get in, he gets through the Star Wars music. Because to me that was part of Star Wars.
Yeah,
and I don't mind the Disney Plus intro. You will never be 20th Century Fox, but that's not the point. I remember at times people were like, can they put 20th Century Fox in the Star Wars sequels? No, but I wish we could too. But the modern logo isn't the same for them anyway. Like, it's not as good. Carl, I'm already saving for Celebration 2027. I shall be from next month, because this month I've had to sort something bigger out. I got paid 2 days ago. I'm not going to put you on the spot, Phill, but if there is a celebration to go to, do you believe it is 2027 LA?
I believe so. I honestly believe so, and it's something that I will be looking at. I don't hold much hope, but that's something I can work on. But I do believe if you were to go to anything, the 50th for Star Wars would be the celebration. Not just because of where it is the importance. I mean, yes, celebration is always a thing to go to. If you like Star Wars, great, do it. It's an experience. You'll love it. But any big celebration of the original trilogy is something to be celebrated. And the 50th, I mean, again, I'm not trying to put a down on it, but how many more do you think Lucas will have in him when it comes to a celebration, when it comes to these big events? There's the 60th, but again, pushing it slightly for that. 50th is going to be one of the biggest events when it comes to Star Wars, but also if you want to see the love and the appreciation for it, that will be the one. We talk about the 40th for 2017. We talk about that panel, that one celebration right there, where you had Hayden come out. You had that reaction, Lucas as well. You have all that together. But give it to 2027 when you're talking, 12 years since the sequel started to come out. The audience for that is going to start coming of age and start coming more of the, I was 10 when this came out. I'm now in my 20s. I now remember it. You're going to have all of that added into one. I do believe if you're going to go to any one, if you can do it, 27 will be the one to do.
And it's the people. Like, I didn't go to Japan, obviously, and I didn't have FOMO as such at the convention. But do you know what I missed out on? Seeing a lot of friends, celebrating Star Wars. It's not just about the convention; it's the nights out, it's the drinks after, it's seeing people you're going to see every couple of years.
Yeah. We met in the queue for celebration. That's that's it right there.
And this is it. And lives change, and it literally has. And you never know who you're going to meet in one of those queues in the future. You never know what the world's going to have in store for us in 2 years' time. But I'm going to add one other thing for people. If you're debating 2027 and you're already not sold, this is a humongous thing for me. Not only have I not ever done LA, in 2027, George Lucas's museum will have opened up.
Yeah.
So he didn't just take his money and disappear from selling the franchise. He has made it his life's work is going to be reflected in is it the Lucas Museum of Narrative Arts, they call it?
Something like that, yeah.
Title of that. It looks like a spaceship, as it should be. I cannot wait to see this. It's going to have a humongous opening, no doubt. That will be a big part for me. The next celebration, it Star Wars' 50th. It'll be a time to do LA finally as a holiday. Be able to see friends, and it will be to do the Oscars Museum. I was meant to go to LA in COVID and I didn't. It will be to do George Lucas's museum. There'll be so many things to do there. That's going to be my not farewell of conventions, but that is a tipping point of taking points there. And I did get reminded by one of my sisters today. It's my 30th next year, which means that next year I can just be it's my 30th, but I can celebrate it in the April afterwards. So. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because it's a big thing of this. I'm glad Carl brought up Celebration 2027. And I think, as you said, it's correct to say we don't know how many more. 2016 was the last time we had Carrie at any form of event. We did not know what was going to happen that year. And as the series obviously ages further, we lose actors, we lose creators, we lose people that worked in the behind the scenes. With it being in LA and so many, you could say politely, stereotypical who works in the film industry, lives in LA, it does make it. I thought it was going to be Anaheim. I'm fine with it being LA because it's basically the same thing for people overseas like us. Someone at Disney's fuming somewhere. I said that.
Oh god.
It's the one to go to. Carl, did I see the interview from Lucas last night? He looked and sounded very well. I didn't. I know it was the Coppola AFI Lifetime Award. I know Spielberg and Lucas went. As I mentioned earlier, I've seen Light and Magic, most of Light and Magic season 2, and he's doing interviews. He looks unbelievable. And I'm going to say this to him. I don't want to say selling Star Wars is the best thing ever, but he very much deserved a retirement to do as he pleased. And for someone as George Lucas, who has very publicly spoke about his health issues with Star Wars, you can go back to him, what happened making the first Star Wars film to evidence that further. He should not have made the sequels, and he did the right thing in bringing in different people to do so. Again, that's not me saying they ended up the way they should have ended up.
No.
But he, I think, made the best call for him. And they certainly filmmaking takes a toll on people, let alone scale of stuff like Star Wars. Weird way to segue episode 3 conversation. I am conscious of the time. Have I missed anything important about this 20th anniversary? That's a better question. What do you want to talk about before I slowly start to round out?
I don't think there's anything else really to say. This has been one of those conversations where just you and I, we can have a chat about
a bar
personal
chat.
Yeah, it's like personal experiences. It's also the impact of, globally when it comes to Star Wars. There's so much to put into it, but it's one of those things of when this came up, even in our chat, we had it, everyone earmarked it and went, right, we're going to have to go and watch it. It's just something that, friends of mine either took time off work for or couldn't get time off work for and was mad they couldn't get the time off work for. It's one of those things of our generation especially has got that impact. There's not a huge amount more to add to it, I think. I think we've covered pretty much everything, but it's one of those things of this was one of those moments that, if you're our age, it's kind of as a not quite a rite of passage, but it's up there, if you know what I mean.
No, I'm with you. It's fun to do these. It's different to do these. Like again, it's I don't mind this. We're not doing a May the 4th video this year, not because of Star Wars. I'm away from Thursday through to Saturday. Revenge of the Sith this weekend. I thought, you know what? I want to do this video this weekend. It's the release weekend. We've both seen it. It's fresh in our minds. We've got Sam on holiday. We've got a few of us we can't get on for a stream. So things are very busy at the moment because this isn't the only Star Wars thing we're working on. We've got Andor videos. It's not easy watching 3 episodes of TV straight after working on Wednesday, then planning a stream. We've all got lives. We've all got stuff we have to do. We've got prior commitments. It's not difficult to arrange, but it's so lovely to talk about the films as well. I've got Carl saying it reminded me that Star Wars can just be fun, and it's great to see fans united for a change. And this is that. I know, Carl, we didn't get to see too much in 2023, but Celebration, the name's on the tin. And I won't get into those other channels, but if anyone remembers Fandom Menace, when I went to Chicago in 2019, they were staging a big protest outside. There was like one person that turned up because no one's really going to go there to say, I hate this. A, that's just stupid and a waste of money. But B, the atmosphere of these events is to celebrate the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get unbelievable panels. I could list you off all the great podcasts who've had panels this year, but one in particular, Scotty J. Rowe, who's an absolute legend, he hosted a panel on midi-chlorians. He's given a university lecture on midi-chlorians, and I believe it's on YouTube. I've not seen it yet. A lot of my friends have shared it. The fact that a fan who runs an outlet can write his own book on midi-chlorians, do it at an event like Star Wars Celebration, and be able to put it elsewhere, no other franchise does that. And they'd have all mocked you for midi-chlorians years ago. And some still might. But the fact that there is that level of dedication and knowledge to Star Wars is worth celebrating. And that's what you get at these events. And it's kind of where I'm going to sort of not end this video, but as we move into our final thoughts, just reflecting on the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. It's a special one. There's a reason it's... If you re-release all 11 Star Wars films, the exact same way they've done Revenge of the Sith this weekend, I would make the boldest claim of bold claims. Right now, in 2025, this would be the highest grossing out of the 11.
Agreed.
With the exact same marketing to celebrate, not the same anniversary, but for 1 week only, 4DX, A New Hope. A New Hope would come close.
Yeah.
Because it's the OG. I think Revenge of the Sith is the most popular Star Wars film. And I've thought this for a very long time. Most popular doesn't necessarily mean best. Most popular doesn't mean worst. It doesn't mean it's overrated. Nothing that popular is popularity. And I think Revenge of the Sith is that. And that is something worth celebrating too. And again, it's exciting. It's great. Carl says it reminds him that it's great to Star Wars. It's great to celebrate Star Wars. It's great to not be dissecting the content of something and have to be arguing. As you said earlier, Phil, right? You had to defend this at university, and then you've had to spend your adult years defending stuff like The Acolyte. And if you don't like stuff, it's fine. But let other people enjoy the things they enjoy. That's the message I'll always have with Star Wars. We grew up in an era where we weren't allowed to, as Mark commented, my son was told he couldn't enjoy Star Wars because he wasn't allowed to.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want to do for the next generation, because they'll be the ones that are making the film soon enough, when, and I will say this, it'll be the last thing I say, I'm sorry it's negative, but when the sequels are being made, it's like, we're bringing back sets, not CGI. I'm like, yeah, well, you're still going to have CGI, but okay, fair enough. There are some things, live action costumes for Clone Troopers, we get that now. And we know that was a George Lucas thing, no one else. That was a George Lucas thing. And I understood why he wanted to do it that way. And as many will say, it didn't work out. But at least we've been able to see live action clone armors and stuff like that since. The filmmakers, not Rian Johnson, but there was a very vocal how we're definitely going to do things differently to the prequels. And I never liked that attitude. But I understood the safety of PR, that you were trying to market it to the elders.
Yeah.
But the reality was you needed to really market for everybody. And it's not me critiquing the sequels. I think the filmmakers' approach was different. We will soon be a generation of filmmaking where the people who will be starting to work on Star Wars films are the ones that grew up with prequels.
Yeah.
They'd have grown up with all Star Wars.
And they are now. I have a family member who's working on them.
Yeah, this is it. And the key creatives will soon be Dave Filoni, for example. That's the Clone Wars. Look at that CV. So it's a weird tangent from me, but I wanted to talk about those. And just my final thoughts on Revenge of the Sith. I'm not reviewing it as a film, but I am saying Revenge of the Sith is one of the most special films I've ever seen. It's one of my favorite ever films, and it always will be. And if I ever have kids, if there's probably definitely not 30th anniversary, there's a 40th anniversary at some point, and maybe there's a kid to take, who knows. But this would be one of those films where I'd cherish showing it to the next generation if that's ever on me to do so.
Well, as I said before, we've talked about Star Wars. My dad took me when I was 6 to see the 20th anniversary. I will do the same thing. That's how my kid gets into it. But it won't be from the excuse of my dad, who covered up his excuse of wanting to go and see it, saying, oh, no, Phil will enjoy it. It was more, no, he wanted to go see Star Wars. No, I'll be up front and say, no, I want to go see it. I just think they'll enjoy it.
This is it. But it's a social thing. We've got family, relatives, connections. I mentioned it at my sister's day. Yesterday, I went with a group of friends. Every experience is different with every person, and it's amazing we get to do so. And it's a shame it's not more than 1 week, but I understand why. But for this video, Phil, it's been a delight discussing Star Wars, as it always is. It's always nice to get people on. It's not me dissing Dave, Sam, anyone else. When there's two of you, we can get a bit more intricate. We can sort of disappear into different conversations, because Christ Almighty would be nearing 2-3 hours if we had a third person. But at the same time, it's what makes it fun. We get to rotate who we bring on, but obviously we're always going to get you on for the episode 3 special. So thank you so much for jumping on.
No worries.
You jumped on Andor with us this week. So everyone, if you like Andor, you can check out our spoiler discussion on the first 3 episodes. That went up on Wednesday. That went up on Thursday. We're all over the place. I think it's going to be live this Wednesday. I'm going away on Thursday, so it has to be live this Wednesday. That's great. Thankfully, it's not clashing with the Arsenal game. That's what's more important. But everybody watching at home, do drop us a comment if you've enjoyed this video. Let us know your thoughts on Revenge of the Sith. If you watched it in 4DX, if you're one of the very few lucky people that got to see it in that BFI IMAX, please do comment. If you're an even luckier person, we didn't even bring this up, who got to see it at the El Capitan, where Hayden Christensen and Samuel L. Jackson came out, fair fucking play to you. And other people comment your experience. It doesn't matter where you watched it. I want to know what people thought seeing it at the cinema. If you're curious about the videos, I mentioned there's a lot more Star Wars stuff coming. You can get us on our social medias, linktree.com. That puts you to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd, where we log everything. So that is going to do it from us today. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
All right.